Hello there, my sleepy citizens. Tonight, we journey into the shadowed streets of Gotham City, where mysteries lurk and the Dark Knight stands vigilant against the forces of chaos. We bring you tales of Batman, uncovering different sides of the man behind the mask. And as our journey through these stories winds down, a calm ambience of Gotham's streets will carry you throughout the night, bringing you to restful sleep without interruptions from any ads. If you enjoy these tales, please be sure to give us a like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments what story you'd like to hear next. But for now, let's get cozy and step into the world of Gotham. The midnight haze settled over Gotham like a velvet blanket, obscuring the jagged skyline in a soft blue glow that belied the city's harsh edges. From his vantage point atop the old Gotham National Bank, Batman watched as the city's rhythm played out below him. Cars moving in predictable patterns, pedestrians hurrying toward warmth and safety, the distant wail of sirens forming the eternal soundtrack of his beloved troubled city. Tonight, however, something in that rhythm felt subtly wrong, like a metronome set just a fraction too fast. 30 seconds, Oracle's voice came through his cowl, calm and precise. The pattern suggests they'll hit the east entrance. Batman's eyes narrowed beneath his cowl as he surveyed the Gotham Diamond Exchange. From the outside, nothing appeared amiss. Security guards patrolled on schedule, cameras pivoted at regular intervals, even the traffic signals on the surrounding blocks changed with predictable precision. Yet Oracle's analysis of recent heists had revealed patterns too consistent to be coincident. GCPD dispatcher just issued the nightly all-clear for the financial district, Oracle continued. Same as the last 3 robberies, all executed during the 14-minute window after the standard patrol check-in. As if summoned by her words, a delivery truck rounded the corner, moving at exactly the speed limit, no faster, no slower. It parked with precision at the loading dock, a timing that would place it perfectly between security camera sweeps. No screeching tires, no hurried movements, just clockwork efficiency. Batman had seen enough. "They're here," he confirmed, already launching himself from his perch in a controlled glide toward the exchange. The timing was impeccable, too perfect to be anything but meticulously planned. Someone had synchronized this operation down to the second. 3 figures emerged from the truck, moving with practiced coordination, not rushed, not hesitant, but with the smooth assurance of those following a precise schedule. Batman landed silently on the loading dock just as they breached the service entrance. One of the figures glanced at a gold pocket watch before turning to address their companions. 14 minutes and 22 seconds, a crisp, measured voice announced. Maintain the timeline. Batman recognized that voice, though he hadn't heard it in years. Temple Fugate, the Clock King. A man whose obsession with time had transformed him from a mild-mannered efficiency expert into one of Gotham's most methodical criminals. Unlike the theatrical chaos of Joker or the evolutionary experiments of Poison Ivy, Clock King's crimes were exercises in precision, each movement calculated, each second accounted for. Batman moved through the shadows, tracking the intruders as they navigated the exchange's security systems with disturbing ease. Their movements suggested intimate knowledge of the guard rotations, camera positions, even the timing of the automated locks. What troubled Batman most wasn't their efficiency, but the complete absence of urgency. They moved like performers in a well-rehearsed ballet, each step precisely timed and executed. 7 minutes until the automated system reset. One of Clock King's associates noted, voice barely above a whisper. Proceed to the secondary vault, Clock King replied, consulting his watch again. 68 seconds for the thermite to breach the outer door, not a moment more. Batman's tactical display confirmed what he was witnessing. This wasn't just a robbery, it was a performance piece, orchestrated to unfold within specific time parameters. The question wasn't whether they could complete the heist. Clock King's planning made that a near certainty. But why this location? Why now? And how it connected to the previous thefts? I need more time, Batman sub-vocalized to Oracle. There's a pattern here, beyond the obvious. Working on it, she replied, Alfred's cross-referencing with the historical archives. The previous targets weren't just valuable, they had significance to Gotham's development. The museum robbery occurred exactly 100 years after the building was commissioned. The financial center hit happened precisely 50 years after the stock market crash that reshaped Gotham's economy. Clock King's team had reached the secondary vault, their movements still unnervingly calm. One associate placed shaped thermite charges with surgical precision, while another monitored the surrounding security systems. Clock King himself stood slightly apart, gold watch in hand, his attention divided between the timepiece and a small tablet displaying what appeared to be multiple countdown timers. 3 minutes remaining in optimal window, he announced. Proceed according to schedule. Batman knew he couldn't simply rush in. Clock King's plans invariably included contingencies, and a direct confrontation might trigger something worse. Instead, he needed to understand the purpose behind this precision, to see the pattern that connected these crimes beyond their meticulous execution. The thermite charges ignited silently, cutting through the vault's outer door exactly as predicted. The precision was admirable, even to Batman's tactical mind. A reminder that Clock King's obsession with timing made him dangerous in ways more flamboyant villains could never achieve. There was no wasted movement, no theatrical flourish, just pure efficiency in service of criminal intent. Master Bruce, Alfred's voice replaced Oracle's in his cowl. I believe I've found something relevant. The Diamond Exchange building was completed exactly 75 years ago today. More specifically, the ceremonial opening occurred at precisely 10:47 p.m., which is 4 minutes from now. Batman finished, the pattern suddenly clear. Clock King wasn't just timing his heists for maximum efficiency. He was synchronizing them with historical moments in Gotham's development. Each robbery marked an anniversary, a temporal echo reverberating through the city's timeline. The vault door swung open with barely a sound, revealing rows of safety deposit boxes containing some of Gotham's most valuable gemstones. Clock King's associates moved inside with practiced efficiency, targeting specific boxes rather than grabbing indiscriminately. This wasn't a smash and grab. It was a carefully curated collection. Begin the extraction sequence, Clock King instructed, eyes never leaving his watch. We have exactly 112 seconds before the next automated security sweep. Batman had seen enough. Whatever historical significance drove these heists, they remained crimes, and Clock King's team had just run out of time. He discharged a smoke pellet into the vault, disrupting their visibility without affecting their breathing. In the momentary confusion, he dropped from his concealed position in the ceiling ductwork, landing between the thieves and their exit. You're late, Clock King observed without looking up from his watch, seemingly unfazed by Batman's arrival. I calculated your intervention for precisely 17 seconds ago. Most disappointing. The timing of your surrender is all that matters now, Fugate, Batman replied, his voice low and measured. Your pattern is exposed. The historical anniversaries, the precision timing, it's clever, but it ends tonight. For the first time, something like emotion flickered across Clock King's otherwise composed features. Not fear, but a certain professional disappointment. You've identified one pattern, Batman, but missed the more significant one. Tonight's acquisition is merely part of a larger sequence, a countdown, if you will. The two associates moved with sudden coordination, dropping smoke bombs of their own, not to conceal their movements, but to trigger the vault's fire suppression system. The sprinklers activated on schedule, creating momentary chaos as Batman adjusted his cowl's visual filters. Events in sequence create momentum, Clock King continued, backing toward the exit with practiced steps. Like the gears in a watch, each turning precisely, driving the next in an inevitable progression. You've interrupted one gear, but the mechanism continued. Batman moved to intercept, but found his path blocked by a precisely timed security gate, triggered not by Clock King's team, but by the exchange's own automated protocols responding to the sprinkler activation. By the time he bypassed it, Clock King and his associates had retreated to their predetermined extraction route. Oracle, they're heading for the service corridor, Batman reported, moving swiftly through the building. Track their vehicle's approach vector. Already on it, she replied. But something's odd. Traffic patterns around the exchange are shifting. Traffic lights are cycling faster than normal, creating a perfect extraction corridor. Someone's manipulating the city's infrastructure. Batman emerged from the exchange just in time to see Clock King's team entering their vehicle, still moving with that same unhurried precision, as though the entire pursuit was simply another variable in their calculated timeline. As the vehicle pulled away, the traffic signals ahead turned green in sequence, creating an unimpeded path through Gotham's normally congested streets. He's hacked into the traffic management system, Batman realized, already firing his grapnel to pursue from above. This wasn't just about the diamonds, it was a test run for manipulating Gotham's infrastructure. Master Bruce, Alfred's voice returned, concern evident despite his measured tone. I believe I understand the significance of these thefts now. Each target corresponds to a critical juncture in Gotham's development, moments when the city's path was determined by technological innovation. The museum housed the original plans for Gotham's subway system. The financial center contained the servers that first connected Gotham to global banking networks. And the Diamond Exchange, Batman asked, swinging between buildings to keep pace with the escaping vehicle as it glided through mysteriously accommodating traffic patterns. The basement vault contains the original architectural models for Gotham's first automated traffic system, Alfred explained, the precursor to our modern smart city infrastructure. If that was indeed Clock Kinger's target, then the diamonds were just a bonus, Batman concluded grimly. He wanted the blueprints, not for their historical value, but for their technical specifications. Below, Clock King's vehicle continued its smooth progress through the city, traffic signals changing in perfect sequence to speed its passage while creating gridlock in intersecting streets to block pursuit. It wasn't just efficient, it was elegant. A demonstration of how thoroughly Gotham's systems could be manipulated by someone who understood their underlying patterns and timing. I can't let them reach the highway, Batman decided. Oracle, I need a predictive model of their route based on current traffic manipulations. Already calculating, she replied. But you should know, these traffic pattern changes aren't just affecting their escape route. The entire downtown grid is experiencing cascading disruptions. Emergency services are reporting delays of up to 7 minutes in response times. That was Clock King's true danger. Not the dramatic flair of Gotham's more theatrical villains, but the ripple effects his precision could create throughout interconnected systems. A 7-minute delay might mean life or death in an emergency. Even a successful diamond heist paled in comparison to the potential harm of manipulated infrastructure. Batman adjusted his trajectory, swinging lower to gain speed as he followed the vehicle's path. The Batmobile would be faster, but in these manipulated traffic conditions, aerial pursuit remained his best option. As he closed the distance, he could see Clock King in the passenger seat, still consulting both his watch and the tablet, not looking backward in fear, but forward with calculation. "I need an intercept point," Batman requested, scanning the route ahead. "Somewhere I can get ahead of their timeline." "Wayne Tower intersection in approximately 40 seconds, Oracle suggested. "Based on current traffic patterns, they'll need to slow slightly to navigate around ongoing construction." Batman altered his course, using momentum and a precisely aimed grapnel to swing toward the indicated intersection. The timing would be tight, but then, wasn't that appropriate when dealing with Clock King? As he approached, he could see the construction barriers, creating a slight bottleneck in the otherwise smooth flow of traffic. 10 seconds, Oracle counted down in his ear. 7, 4. The vehicle appeared, moving smoothly but indeed slowing fractionally to navigate the narrowed lane. Batman released his grapnel line, dropping directly onto the vehicle's roof, with enough controlled force to dent but not breach the metal. Inside, he could see Clock King's calm expression finally register surprise, not at Batman's presence, but at the deviation from his calculated timeline. "You're 3.4 seconds early," Clock King's voice came through the roof, somehow both irritated and impressed. "Fascinating." "Your schedule's been cancelled," Batman replied, already working to disable the vehicle's electrical systems through its roof access panel. The car began to slow as his interference disrupted its engine management systems. "On contingency among many," Clock King responded with that same unnerving calm. "The sequence continues regardless." The vehicle came to a stop at the edge of the construction zone, but Batman's tactical display suddenly flashed warning indicators. The traffic signals around them were changing rapidly, creating a domino effect of congestion that would soon block all movement in a 6-block radius. "Oracle, what's happening?" Batman demanded, even as he moved to secure the vehicle's occupants. "It's not just this area," she replied, her voice tense with focus. "The entire downtown grid is experiencing a synchronized signal failure. Emergency services are completely locked out of central arteries. This is bigger than an escape plan. It's a city-wide disruption." As Batman forced open the driver's door, he found only 2 occupants, one associate and Clock King himself, the latter still consulting his watch with apparent satisfaction. The third team member was conspicuously absent. "Where's your other associate?" Batman demanded, securing the driver with swift efficiency. Clock King's smile was small but genuine, the expression of a chess player whose opponent had finally noticed an advancement on the Queen's side, while missing the real threat elsewhere. Precisely where he needs to be, when he needs to be there. The diamonds were merely gear teeth in a larger mechanism, Batman. The true clockwork is Gotham itself. Batman secured Clock King, confiscating both his pocket watch and tablet. The traffic display on the tablet showed not just their immediate area, but the entire downtown grid, a sprawling network of intersections represented by blinking lights, many now flashing red to indicate gridlock. "Oracle, I need a full system analysis of Gotham's traffic infrastructure," Batman instructed, already examining the tablet's interface. Clock King's operation wasn't just about this heist. It was a synchronized attack on the city's movement patterns. On it, she acknowledged. But these disruptions don't follow any standard hacking protocol. It's almost like they were built into the system from the beginning, Alfred finished. The historical blueprints from each location, they weren't just targets of opportunity. They contained the original access protocols for Gotham's foundational systems. Batman turned his attention back to Clock King, who maintained that maddening expression of pleased anticipation despite his capture. What's the end game, Fugate? These traffic disruptions are too widespread to be just about your escape. Time is the ultimate architecture, Batman, Clock King replied, his voice taking on a professor's patient tone. Gotham was built in layers, each new system built upon the foundations of the old. Few remember that the modern traffic grid still contains elements of its original design. Backdoor protocols and emergency overrides that were never removed, merely buried beneath newer code. He's right, Oracle confirmed in Batman's ear. I'm finding original programming elements in the traffic management system dating back decades, dormant protocols that have been systematically activated over the past hour. The historical anniversaries weren't just symbolic, Batman realized. They marked the exact systems you needed to access: the Museum for Transit Planning, the Financial Center for Networked Communications, and the Diamond Exchange for the original traffic modeling algorithms. Clock King finished with evident satisfaction. 3 points create a pattern, Batman. 3 historical systems activated in sequence, culminating in tonight's demonstration. Demonstration, Batman repeated, the implications suddenly clear. This isn't just a heist, it's a proof of concept. Clock King's smile widened fractionally. Precisely. Gotham's wealthy have always valued punctuality and efficiency. Imagine what they might pay for guaranteed movement through an increasingly congested city. Private transit lanes, optimized signal patterns, the ability to navigate Gotham without delay, while the commoners sit in gridlock. It was elegant in its simplicity, not a plot for destruction or chaos, but for profit, through controlled manipulation of the city's basic functions. By demonstrating his ability to control traffic patterns, Clock Kinger was creating both the problem and the solution he intended to sell. Master Bruce, Alfred interjected, if Clock King has indeed activated these historical protocols, they would likely be managed from a central location, somewhere with direct access to the original infrastructure. Batman's mind raced through possibilities, analyzing the pattern of affected intersections displayed on the tablet. The disruptions weren't random. They formed a specific shape across Gotham's grid with a clear epicenter. The clock tower, he determined, identifying the historic building near Gotham's central business district. The city's first automated traffic system was controlled from there before the modern management center was built. If these are historical protocols being activated, the original control systems might still be accessible from that location, Oracle completed. I'm checking city records now. Yes, the building still houses telecommunications equipment in its maintenance levels. It was never fully decommissioned when the new systems came online. Batman secured Clock King and his associate for GCPD pickup, but his focus had already shifted to the wider threat. The scattered diamonds in the vehicle seemed almost trivial now compared to the cascading infrastructure disruptions spreading through Gotham's streets. I'm heading to the clock tower, he informed Alfred and Oracle. If the third associate is there, they'll be using the original control systems to maintain these disruptions. You have 23 minutes, Clock King called after him, his voice carrying that same unnerving calm despite his capture. After that, the synchronization becomes self-sustaining, a perfect perpetual motion machine of gridlock and calculated movement. Batman fired his grapnel toward the nearest building, launching himself back into Gotham's skyline. Below, the effects of Clock King's scheme were becoming visible even from above. Intersections locked in gridlock, emergency vehicles trapped between immobile traffic, patterns of movement disrupted in ways that cascaded outward like ripples in a pond. Oracle, alert emergency services to use alternate routes, Batman instructed as he swung between buildings, and have Lucius standing by. We may need his expertise on Gotham's infrastructure systems. Already on it, she confirmed. But Batman, these disruptions are accelerating. Whatever Clock King's associate is doing at the clock tower, it's having exponential effects on the grid. The clock tower rose ahead of him, its illuminated face showing the correct time despite the chaos unfolding below. Batman found a certain irony in that. The historic timepiece maintaining its steady count while Clock King's scheme disrupted the city's modern rhythms. As he landed on the building's ornate facade, his cowl's enhanced vision detected subtle movement behind the maintenance access door near the clock mechanism itself. "I've got movement inside," he reported, already working to bypass the door's security. "Likely our missing associate." "Be careful, Master Bruce," Alfred cautioned. "These older systems may be crude by modern standards, but they're integrated into Gotham's infrastructure at a fundamental level. Any disruption could have unintended consequences." Batman slipped through the access door, entering the narrow maintenance space behind the clock's massive face. The gears and mechanisms of the historic timepiece filled much of the chamber, their steady mechanical movement creating a rhythmic backdrop of clicks and whirs. Beyond them, a soft blue glow emanated from what had once been the control room for Gotham's first automated traffic system. Moving silently between the clock's components, Batman approached the control room. Inside, Clock King's associate worked at what appeared to be an anachronistic hybrid of technologies. Ancient control panels retrofitted with modern interfaces, original mechanical switches connected to digital displays. On the central monitor, a map of Gotham's streets showed spreading patterns of disruption, sections turning from green to yellow to red as gridlock expanded throughout the city. The associate didn't notice Batman's approach, too focused on the cascading patterns unfolding on the screens. Their fingers moved across both mechanical switches and digital keyboards with practiced precision, adjusting parameters that seemed to accelerate the spreading disruptions. "It's over," Batman announced, stepping into the control room. "Clock King is in custody. Shut the system down." The associate spun in surprise, reaching instinctively for what appeared to be a fail-safe switch. Batman's batarang struck with precision, disabling the switch without damaging the surrounding controls. "You're too late," the associate insisted, gesturing toward the central display. "The pattern is established. The algorithms are self-perpetuating now. In exactly 19 minutes, Gotham's traffic grid will reach total synchronization failure. After that, only the master protocol can restore normal function." Batman approached the control panel, analyzing the hybrid system with quick efficiency. "Where's the master protocol?" The associate's smile mimicked Clock King's maddeningly calm confidence. "In the one place you won't access in time. Locked in an encrypted file that requires physical keys from all 3 historical locations: the museum, the financial center, and the diamond exchange. Clock King holds one, I hold another, and the third is with your captured colleague," Batman finished, already connecting to Oracle. "I need a direct interface with this system. There has to be a bypass." "Working on it," she replied. "But Batman, these aren't modern security protocols. They're mechanical encryption methods from decades ago, translated into digital form. Brute forcing them could cause further disruptions." Batman turned his attention to Clock King's associate, securing them while continuing to analyze the control systems. The central display showed the countdown, 17 minutes until complete synchronization failure. If the associate was telling the truth, Gotham would face transportation chaos unlike anything in its history. Lucius, Batman activated another channel. I need your expertise on Gotham's original traffic systems. The clock tower control room has been reactivated and is causing citywide disruptions. The clock tower systems? Lucius Fox's voice held surprise. Those haven't been operational in decades. They were supposed to be decommissioned when the new traffic management center came online. Supposed to be, Batman confirmed grimly. But Clock King found the original protocols and reactivated them. They're causing cascading failures throughout the modern network. Clever, Lucius acknowledged. The old systems were designed as a master override, a failsafe in case the newer technologies malfunctioned. If he's activated those protocols, they'll take precedence over modern controls. Batman examined the hybrid interface, recognizing components from multiple eras of Gotham's development. Mechanical switches from the original installation, electronic components added during upgrades in subsequent decades, and modern digital interfaces grafted onto systems never designed to accommodate them. There has to be an original override, Batman reasoned. Something built into the system before all these additions. There was, Lucius confirmed, a master reset protocol, designed for emergency use if the automated systems failed, but accessing it would require the original control key, a physical device that should have been preserved in the city archives. Let me guess, Batman replied, already anticipating the answer. It would have been stored at one of the 3 locations Clock King targeted. The Diamond Exchange, Lucian confirmed. Along with the original architectural models, there should have been a master control key, a mechanical device that plugged directly into the primary control panel. Batman turned his attention back to the control panel, scanning for anything resembling the interface Lucius described. Among the modernized components, certain elements remained unchanged, including a peculiar brass fitting near the central controls that appeared designed to accept a mechanical key. I think I've found the interface, Batman reported, but without the original key, you'll need to fabricate a replacement, Lucius finished. I can transmit the specifications to the Batcave, but machining a compatible key would take hours. We don't have. Batman's gaze fell upon Clock King's captured associate, and more specifically, the antique pocket watch visible in their vest pocket. Similar to Clock King's own timepiece, but with subtle differences in the casing. The watches, Batman realized, retrieving the item. They're not just for keeping time. Examining the watch more closely, Batman noted unusual mechanical elements in its construction, gears and fittings that served no purpose in timekeeping. The watch case itself was heavier than it should be, with a seam running along its edge that didn't correspond to normal pocket watch design. Oracle, contact GCPD. I need them to secure Clock King's watch and transmit detailed images immediately, Batman instructed, already working to disassemble the associate's timepiece. On it, she acknowledged. But Batman, we're down to 14 minutes before system synchronization. The pocket watch came apart in Batman's hands, revealing its dual nature, both functioning timepiece and mechanical key. The brass components inside matched the interface on the control panel, though only partially. Combined with Clock King's own watch, they might form the complete key. Lucius, I need you to compare these components with the original key specifications, Batman requested, transmitting images through his cowl. Clock King divided the master key into components disguised as pocket watches. Ingenious, Lucius remarked, already analyzing the data. Yes, these appear to be modified versions of the original control key mechanism. The two watches together would likely form a functional key, though potentially still incomplete without the third component. Batman turned his attention back to the countdown display. 12 minutes remaining until Gotham's traffic systems reached critical failure. Emergency services were already reporting life-threatening delays, and the cascading gridlock had begun affecting power distribution as utility vehicles couldn't reach necessary substations. "We don't have time to wait for the GCPD to retrieve Clock King's watch," Batman decided. "I need an alternative override." "Master Bruce," Alfred's voice returned with sudden urgency. "I believe there may be another approach. The historical records indicate that Gotham's original traffic system was designed with a mechanical timing circuit, essentially a clock that regulated signal changes. If Clock King has reactivated the original protocol, then the clock tower itself might be part of the control system," Batman finished, his gaze shifting to the massive clock mechanism visible through the control room doorway. "Not just symbolically, but functionally." "Precisely," Alfred confirmed. "The tower's clock was integrated into the original traffic management system. Its timing circuits regulated the baseline patterns for the entire grid." Batman moved swiftly back into the clock mechanism room, examining the massive gears and counterweights that had kept Gotham time for over a century. His enhanced vision identified connections between the clock's components and the control systems in the adjacent room, subtle interfaces that had been preserved through decades of renovations and upgrades. If the clock mechanism is still connected to the control systems, Batman reasoned, then adjusting its timing might disrupt Clock King's algorithm. "A temporary disruption at best," Lucius cautioned. "His systems are designed to adapt to changing conditions. You'd need to create a significant desynchronization to break the pattern." Batman analyzed the clock's regulatory components, identifying the elements that maintained its precise timing. The pendulum swung with hypnotic regularity, each movement triggering intricate interactions throughout the mechanism. Altering that fundamental rhythm would cascade through the entire system. "I need to adjust the clock's timing without stopping it completely," Batman determined. "A controlled disruption rather than a failure." Working with careful precision, he accessed the pendulum's regulation system, making subtle adjustments to its periodicity. The massive, minute hand above continued its steady progress, but the underlying rhythm began to shift, subtle at first, then more noticeably as the changes propagated through the system. On the control room displays, the traffic pattern projections began to fluctuate, the certainty of their predictions becoming less absolute as their timing reference shifted. The countdown continued, but the patterns of gridlock displayed on the central monitor began showing unexpected variations. "It's working," Oracle reported. "The traffic disruptions are becoming less predictable. Emergency services are finding routes opening unexpectedly." "Not enough," Batman responded, noting that the countdown still progressed. "The system is adapting just as Lucius predicted. We need something more significant." His gaze fell upon the clock's striking mechanism, the complex array of gears and hammers that produced the clock tower's famous hourly chimes. Unlike the timekeeping components, the striking mechanism operated on a separate sequence, activated only at specific intervals. The striking mechanism, Batman realized, if it's activated out of sequence, it would create a major disruption in the system's timing protocols, Lucius completed. But triggering it manually could damage the historic mechanism. Better the mechanism than lives lost in gridlocked emergency situations, Batman decided. already accessing the striking controls. The challenge was triggering the striking mechanism without simply forcing it mechanically, a brute approach that might cause permanent damage to the historic timepiece. Instead, Batman located the mechanism's engagement system, the components that would normally activate it at the top of each hour. With careful manipulation, he altered the engagement timing, not forcing the mechanism to strike, but convincing it that the hour had arrived. The massive gears began to turn in their hourly sequence, preparing to drive the hammers that would strike the clock tower's bells. 8 minutes to critical synchronization, Oracle updated. Whatever you're doing, it needs to happen soon. Get ready for some noise, Batman warned, completing his adjustments to the striking mechanism. The first deep tone of the clock tower's bell resonated through the structure, its vibrations physically palpable within the mechanism room, a sound designed to be heard across Gotham, now concentrated in the confined space of the tower itself. The control room displays flickered as the unexpected signal propagated through systems designed to calibrate themselves to the tower's timekeeping. The pattern is breaking down, Oracle reported as the second strike sounded. Traffic signals are returning to local control across multiple sectors. Batman watched as the countdown timer on the main display began to fluctuate, losing its steady progression as the bell strikes continued. The system had been designed to use the clock tower's regular timekeeping as a synchronization standard. The unexpected striking sequence was introducing chaotic elements into what had been Clock King's perfectly orchestrated pattern. By the 7th bell strike, the displays showed widespread disruption to Clock King's algorithms. Emergency vehicles began reporting clear routes through previously gridlocked areas, and the cascading failure patterns displayed on the monitors showed signs of dissipation rather than expansion. Critical synchronization averted, Oracle confirmed as the final bell tone faded. Traffic systems are reverting to standard protocols across most of the grid. Batman returned to the control room, where the displays now showed stabilizing patterns across Gotham's transportation network. The countdown had frozen, then disappeared altogether, as Clock King's carefully calculated disruption dissolved into normal traffic management. Clever improvisation, Clock King's associate admitted begrudgingly. Using the tower's own voice against our timing, the master would be impressed if not pleased. Gotham survived long before Clock King's perfect timing, Batman replied, securing the associate for GCPD pickup, and it will continue to adapt long after your synchronized schemes are forgotten. As emergency services reported resuming normal operations and gridlocked intersections began to clear, Batman transmitted the relevant data to Oracle and Alfred. The hybrid control systems would need to be properly decommissioned, this time ensuring no historical backdoors remained accessible. Master Bruce, Alfred's voice carried that familiar mix of relief and concern. Might I suggest you return to the cave for some rest? The night has been rather precisely scheduled until now. Batman surveyed the clock tower's mechanism room one last time, watching as the massive gears resumed their normal rhythm after the disruption of the unscheduled striking sequence. There was something almost poetic about it, a reminder that even the most carefully ordered systems sometimes require disorder to prevent stagnation. On my way, Alfred, he acknowledged, moving toward the maintenance exit. Below, Gotham's streets were gradually returning to their normal patterns, imperfect, sometimes chaotic, but functioning according to the genuine needs of the city rather than someone's imposed order. As Batman fired his grapnel and swung from the clock tower, the first hints of dawn were beginning to lighten the eastern sky. Another night in Gotham, one whose events would soon be measured not in Clock King's precise minutes and seconds, but in lives saved by emergency services no longer trapped in artificial gridlock. In the Batcave, hours later, Bruce Wayne studied the components extracted from the pocket watches, marvels of miniaturized engineering that had nearly brought Gotham to a standstill. Alfred approached with a cup of tea, setting it nearby with characteristic precision. "Fascinating devices," Alfred commented, examining the disassembled timepieces. "To think such small mechanisms could control systems affecting millions." "That's always been Clock King's true danger," Bruce replied, carefully reassembling one of the watches. "Not violence or destruction, but the subtle manipulation of systems most people never notice until they fail." Alfred nodded thoughtfully. "Rather like time itself, I suppose. Invisible when functioning properly, all-consuming when disrupted." Bruce's attention shifted to the bank of monitors, displaying Gotham's now normalized traffic patterns. The city had resumed its natural rhythm, imperfect, occasionally congested, but adaptable in ways Clock King's rigid algorithms could never fully anticipate. "Lucius is working with city planners to properly decommission the original systems," Bruce noted, "this time ensuring no historical backdoors remain." "A wise precaution," Alfred agreed, "though I must admit, there's something rather poignant about disconnecting these original systems. They've silently served Gotham for generations, even as the city built newer technologies atop them." Bruce understood Alfred's sentiment. The clock tower itself represented that same continuity, a timepiece that had measured Gotham's progress through both prosperity and hardship, its steady rhythm continuing regardless of the city's changing fortunes. "Some systems are worth preserving," Bruce acknowledged, "but not as vulnerabilities to be exploited." As dawn fully illuminated the cave's entrance, Bruce finally allowed himself to feel the fatigue of the night's efforts. Clock King would be securely contained at Arkham, his associates in GCPD custody, the historical artifacts recovered and returned to proper storage. Gotham would continue its imperfect flow, its streets once again governed by the natural patterns of human movement rather than artificial precision. "Might I suggest some rest, Master Bruce?" Alfred prompted gently. "Even the most precisely calibrated mechanisms require downtime for maintenance." Bruce smiled slightly at the clock-based metaphor, knowing Alfred had chosen it deliberately. "Good advice," he agreed, setting aside the reassembled timepiece. "Wake me if anything requires attention." "Of course, sir," Alfred replied with that perfectly measured tone that somehow conveyed both formality and fondness. "Though I suspect Gotham can manage its own timing for a few hours without intervention." As Bruce climbed the stairs toward the manor, he found himself listening to the subtle sounds that measured time in the cave. Water droplets falling with irregular periodicity, the gentle hum of computer systems, the distant movements of bats returning from their night's activities. Not the perfect mechanical precision of Clock King's orchestrated routines, but a natural rhythm with its own kind of harmony. Time would continue its steady progression, measured by the clock tower above and countless personal timepieces throughout Gotham. But for now, at least, that measurement would serve the city's needs rather than control them. Each second bringing new possibilities rather than predetermined outcomes. In a city defined by its ability to rebuild, to adapt, to survive despite every challenge thrown at it, there was something appropriate about victory coming through the disruption of too perfect order. The following evening, Bruce returned to the Batcave rested and focused. Alfred had prepared a detailed analysis of the recovered components from Clock King's operation, correlating them with historical records of Gotham's infrastructure development. Quite remarkable engineering, if one can appreciate it objectively, Alfred noted as Bruce examined the displays. Clock King seems to have mapped the entire evolutionary history of Gotham's municipal systems, identifying precisely where older protocols remain embedded in newer technologies. A lifetime of obsession, Bruce acknowledged, studying the intricate connections Clock King had discovered between seemingly unrelated systems. He didn't just see Gotham's infrastructure as it is now, he saw the layers of development, the historical echoes, still influencing modern operations. Alfred gestured toward one particular diagram, a timeline showing the consecutive development of Gotham's traffic management systems across decades. Rather like archaeological strata, sir, each generation building upon the foundations laid by their predecessors, often without fully understanding what came before. Bruce nodded thoughtfully, and like archaeology, Clock King found ways to use those historical fragments to understand the present and potentially control the future. The main computer chimed softly, indicating an incoming communication from Oracle. Her voice filled the cave a moment later. Thought you might want to know. GCPD just finished processing the evidence from the Diamond Exchange. The specific items Clock King targeted weren't just the architectural models themselves, but the annotations made by their creator. Handwritten notes that wouldn't have been digitized, Bruce surmised. Details that wouldn't appear in official records. Exactly, Oracle confirmed. Personal insights from the original engineer about how the systems were designed to interact. Shortcuts and workarounds that never made it into the official documentation. Bruce moved to the workbench where the disassembled pocket watches lay in careful arrangement. Each component had been meticulously crafted not just for timekeeping, but for its secondary function as part of a distributed access key. The craftsmanship reflected Clock King's fundamental nature. Patient, precise, willing to invest months or even years in creating tools perfectly suited to their purpose. Clock King once told me that time is the ultimate architecture, Bruce recalled. I thought he was being poetic, but he meant it literally. He sees the flow of time as something that can be mapped, manipulated, even controlled through proper understanding of its structure. A concerning perspective from someone with his capabilities, Alfred observed, particularly given how thoroughly he mapped Gotham's timing-dependent systems. Bruce's attention shifted to another monitor displaying Clock King's secured accommodations at Arkham Asylum. Unlike many inmates who raged against their confinement, Temple Fugate sat in perfect stillness on the edge of his cot, eyes closed, hands resting precisely on his knees. Even without his pocket watch, he appeared to be counting seconds with unwavering accuracy, a human metronome whose internal rhythm continued regardless of external circumstances. He's already planning his next synchronization, Bruce noted. Even in confinement, his mind continues mapping temporal patterns. Then perhaps our focus should be on ensuring he has fewer historical systems to exploit, Oracle suggested. Lucius has been working with city engineers to identify other potential vulnerabilities, places where older protocols might still offer backdoor access to modern infrastructure. Bruce nodded approval. Clock King showed us a blind spot in how we view technological evolution. We focus so much on adding new systems that we rarely fully decommission the old ones. A valuable lesson, if rather dramatically delivered, Alfred commented dryly. Though I suspect the morning commuters caught in yesterday's gridlock might have preferred a less instructive approach. The conversation was interrupted by an alert from the Bat computer. A notification from GCPD dispatch reporting suspicious activity near the Gotham Municipal Archives. Bruce moved immediately to the computer, bringing up security camera feeds from the area. Clock King's associates? Alfred inquired, noting Bruce's sudden focus. No, Bruce replied, studying the footage. Different methodology entirely. This looks like... He paused, recognizing a familiar pattern in how the perpetrators were approaching the building. Riddler's people. Completely different timing signature. More theatrical, less precise. From precise timepieces to puzzling riddles, Alfred remarked with subtle humor. Never a dull moment in Gotham's criminal ecosystem. Bruce was already moving toward the Batsuit, his mind shifting from the completed case to the emerging one. Clock King sought control through historical patterns. Riddler's after something else entirely. And you'll determine exactly what, I have no doubt, Alfred responded with quiet confidence, though perhaps with slightly less historical research and slightly more riddle solving. As Batman prepared to head out into Gotham once more, he carried with him the lessons learned from confronting Clock King's temporal manipulation. The city's strength lay not in perfectly synchronized systems or meticulously timed operations, but in its adaptability, its capacity to find new patterns when old ones failed, to create harmony from seeming chaos. The clock tower's bells would continue marking Gotham's hours as they had for generations, their steady rhythm a reminder that time itself remained beyond anyone's complete control. The best one could do, even someone as obsessively precise as Clock King, was to move with its flow, rather than trying to impose artificial patterns upon its passage. Batman launched himself into the night, leaving behind the disassembled timepieces that had nearly brought Gotham to a standstill. Below, the city's streets pulsed with their usual imperfect rhythm, vehicles flowing through intersections, governed by algorithms designed to accommodate human unpredictability, rather than enforce rigid precision. It was, Batman reflected as he swung between buildings, what made Gotham both challenging and worth protecting. Not its order, but its complex, sometimes chaotic humanity. A quality that no amount of synchronized timing could ever fully predict or control. As Batman disappeared into the night skyline, the rhythms of Gotham continued their eternal dance. The clock tower's bells resumed their regular cadence, marking time as they had for generations. Clock King's attempt to impose perfect order had been thwarted, leaving the city to flow according to its own natural patterns once again. But Gotham's respite would be brief. Even as one threat receded into Arkham's secured halls, another was emerging from the shadows of the city's artistic district. While Batman had been focused on deciphering historical patterns and mechanical precision, a different kind of obsession had been taking form. One concerned not with the mathematical precision of time, but with the chaotic impressions of the mind. Stories in Gotham often overlapped this way. One villain's scheme barely contained before another's vision began to unfold. Such was the nature of the city Batman had sworn to protect, its dangers as diverse as they were persistent. In a small, dimly lit apartment overlooking the old art museum, a man with wild eyes and an even wilder imagination carefully arranged a collection of colorful teacups along a shelf. His fingers trembled with anticipation as he placed the final cup, a chipped antique with faded roses painted along its rim. Jervis Tetch, the Mad Hatter, stepped back to admire his display, tilting his oversized hat at a jaunty angle. "Perfect, perfect," he whispered, his voice rising and falling in sing-song cadence. "Every cup tells a story. Every color speaks a truth." His gaze drifted to the easel standing in the corner, where a canvas awaited the first strokes of what would become his masterpiece. "And what tales we shall tell," he continued, addressing the silent teacups as though they were eager listeners. "A wonderland of perception, a looking glass into the mind's eye." His fingers traced the rim of the largest teacup, its deep crimson interior still damp with something darker than tea. Unlike Clock King's methodical schemes built on historical patterns and precise timing, the Mad Hatter's vision emerged from imagination untethered from reality, a dangerous fusion of literary obsession and pharmaceutical innovation, where one villain sought to control Gotham through mathematical precision, another would attempt to reshape it through altered perception. And so, as one case closed, another began. The eternal cycle of Gotham's underworld continuing its unpredictable flow. For Batman, the challenge would shift from understanding the architecture of time to navigating the landscape of a mind unbound by conventional reality. The painter of blood awaited, brush in hand, ready to transform Gotham into his own twisted wonderland. Moonlight spilled across the marble floor of the Gotham Art Museum's East Wing, casting long shadows that seemed to breathe with the gentle movement of clouds overhead. Batman moved silently through the grand gallery, his cape barely disturbing the hushed atmosphere that lingered after hours. The museum had closed to the public days ago following the discovery. A museum guard posed grotesquely beside Gotham's most famous painting, The Lady of Sorrow. The victim's blank eyes stared upwards, his body arranged to mirror the painting's subject, down to the teacup placed delicately in his lifeless hand. Batman knelt beside the outline where the body had been, his cowl's enhanced vision revealing details the GCPD might have missed. Microscopic fibers caught in the light, unusual threads with patterns that didn't match standard textile manufacturing. He collected samples methodically, each movement precise and economical. Cross-links complete. Orokov's voice came softly through his cowl. This makes 3 victims in 3 weeks, each positioned to mimic a painting in the museum's permanent collection, and each with a card, Batman replied, his voice barely above a whisper respecting the somber stillness of the gallery. He examined the evidence photo of a handwritten note left with the victim. Tick-tock goes the clock. The Queen demands your head. Roses painted red with blood, the March hare soon will wed. The literary reference wasn't subtle. The Mad Hatter, Jervis Tetch, had been quiet for months, presumably confined to Arkham Asylum. Yet these murders carried his unmistakable signature, a grotesque blend of Lewis Carroll's whimsy and Tetch's own psychotic obsessions. Alfred, have you confirmed Tetch's status? Batman sub-vocalized, knowing the butler monitored his communications from the Batcave. I've just received verification, sir, Alfred's cultured voice replied. Most troubling news. It appears Mr. Tetch was transferred to Blackgate Prison's psychiatric wing 6 weeks ago during Arkham's renovation. During a power failure 3 weeks ago, several inmates escaped, including our literary enthusiast. The authorities have kept it rather quiet, typical bureaucratic damage control. Batman's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. 3 weeks of freedom, 3 victims. He's escalating. The time between killings is shortening. He moved deeper into the gallery, studying each painting with careful attention. The museum housed one of the country's finest collections of Gotham artists spanning centuries. Dark, brooding works that captured the city's Gothic character. Tetch had chosen his canvas carefully. I've analyzed the paintings connected to the victims. Oracle continued. They're all by different artists from different periods, but they share common elements. Each features a solitary figure in a moment of contemplation or revelation, and each includes some form of door or passage. Batman paused before the Lady of Sorrow, studying the background details Oracle had highlighted. Behind the melancholy woman with her teacup was a barely visible doorway shrouded in shadow. The painting from the previous crime scene, The Scholar's Dream, showed its subject sleeping beside an open window, and the first victim had been posed beside the lighthouse keeper's daughter, where a narrow staircase spiraled upward into darkness. Portals, Batman murmured. Passages between worlds. Down the rabbit hole, as it were, Alfred added. Mr. Tetch has always been fixated on thresholds between reality and fantasy. As Batman continued his methodical examination of the gallery, the moonlight shifted, casting new shadows across the ornate wooden floors. These murders weren't merely theatrical displays of madness. They were invitations. Tetch was building towards something, creating his own twisted narrative, with Gotham's artistic legacy as his medium. I need information on upcoming exhibitions, Batman told Oracle. Anything that might fit Tetch's pattern. Already compiling it, she replied. The museum's next major opening is in 2 days. Visions of Wonderland, dreams and nightmares in Gotham art. It's been in planning for months, featuring works that explore fantasy and surrealism. Batman felt the connection lock into place. That's his endgame. He's building toward the exhibition. Each murder is a chapter leading to his finale. Sir. Alfred's voice carried a note of recognition. I believe I've identified a pattern in the victims themselves. The guard was former military, trained in surveillance. The second victim was a security system designer. The third, a locksmith who specialized in antique locking mechanisms. His collecting skills, Batman concluded. People whose expertise could help him access or secure a location. He moved toward the administrative section of the museum, away from the public galleries. Oracle, get me everything on the exhibition's curator. Tetch is building towards something specific within the Wonderland theme. Dr. Eleanor Caldwell, Oracle supplied immediately. Art historian, specializing in Victorian-era Gotham artists. She's been with the museum for 15 years and personally conceived this exhibition. Her office is in the West Wing. Batman changed direction, moving through the shadows with practiced ease. The museum's West Wing housed research facilities and staff offices, less ornate than the public spaces, but still maintaining the building's neo-Gothic character. Dr. Caldwell's office door stood slightly ajar, a thin line of light spilling into the darkened hallway. He approached cautiously, senses alert for any sign of a trap. Through the gap he could see papers scattered across a desk, books pulled haphazardly from shelves, signs of a hurried search rather than Tetch's usual theatrical arrangements. Dr. Caldwell, he called softly, pushing the door open wider. A woman emerged from behind a tall filing cabinet, her eyes widening at the sight of Batman. Dr. Eleanor Caldwell was in her 50s, her silver-streaked hair pulled back in a practical bun, wire-rimmed glasses perched on her nose. She clutched a thick, leather-bound volume to her chest like a shield. I was wondering when you'd come, she said, her voice steady despite her evident tension. He's been here, looking for this. She held up the book, an antique edition with faded gold lettering. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, first American edition, 1866. Tell me what happened, Batman said, closing the door behind him. 3 days ago, I received a package, she explained, setting the book carefully on her desk. A hat box with a card attached, just my name and a quote from Carol. Inside was, she swallowed hard, a mechanical rabbit, clockwork. When I wound it, it spoke in his voice, said he needed my expertise for his greatest exhibition. What did you do? I've worked in Gotham long enough to recognize madness when it arrives gift-wrapped, she replied with surprising composure. I contacted GCPD, but she gestured vaguely. We both know how that goes. So I've been researching, trying to understand what he wants. She tapped the book. This was acquired by the museum last year. It belonged to William Gotham's daughter. It contains margin notes and sketches not found in any other edition. Batman approached the desk, examining the ancient volume without touching it. And you think Tetch wants it because of these annotations? Not exactly. She opened the book carefully, revealing pages with faded, childish drawings in the margins. Look at this illustration of the Mad Hatter's tea party. Do you notice anything unusual? Batman studied the page. Beside Carol's famous scene was a small sketch showing the Mad Hatter character standing before what appeared to be a doorway or frame. A portal, he said, connecting it to his earlier observation. Yes, Dr. Caldwell nodded. And it appears in several places throughout the book. William Gotham's daughter was fascinated by the idea of passages between worlds. But here's what's significant. Her drawings match architectural elements from several historical Gotham buildings, including this one. She pointed to another sketch that clearly depicted the museum's distinctive arched windows. She was mapping real locations, Batman realized. Incorporating them into her fantasy world, yes. Children often blend reality with imagination, but these particular locations... Dr. Caldwell hesitated. They're all connected to a secret society that operated in Gotham during the 1860s, the Order of the Looking Glass. They believed in the possibility of opening doorways to other realms of consciousness. Batman's eyes narrowed behind his cowl. And you think Tetch has discovered this connection? I know he has, she said grimly. 2 weeks ago, someone accessed our digital archives, focusing specifically on documents related to the Order. Then artifacts began disappearing from our storage facilities, items that belonged to founding members of the group. What kind of artifacts? Ritual implements, mostly. The Order was part scientific inquiry, part occult practice. Typical Victorian contradiction. They conducted experiments with consciousness-altering compounds, believing they could access other dimensions of reality. She adjusted her glasses nervously. Several of the missing items were designed to focus the mind during their ceremonies. Mind control, Batman said flatly. Tetch's specialty. Precisely, Dr. Caldwell agreed. But with a historical framework that gives his delusions a narrative structure. The Order believed they nearly succeeded in opening a permanent doorway during their final gathering in 1868. Their records describe a ritual conducted in a chamber beneath this very building. Batman processed this information rapidly. The museum wasn't built until 1899. No, but it sits on the foundation of William Gotham's original estate. The museum incorporated parts of the earlier structure, including several subterranean chambers that are now used for storage. She picked up a building plan from her desk. I've been trying to match the Order's descriptions with our existing architecture. There's a sealed chamber that doesn't appear on any modern blueprints. It would be directly beneath the central rotunda where we're installing the Wonderland exhibition. Batman committed the plans to memory. You believe that's Tetch's target. It's the only location that connects everything, the Order's final ritual, the architectural elements in the drawings, and the centerpiece of our exhibition. She hesitated. There's something else you should know. The Order's final ceremony was interrupted by authorities. In their haste to escape, they left behind their most prized possession. An artifact they called the Looking Glass Key. It was supposedly capable of opening the doorway between worlds. Where is this artifact now? That's just it. It was presumed lost for over a century. But last month, during renovation work on the East Wing Foundation, workers discovered a sealed compartment containing a metal device of unknown purpose. Our conservation team has been studying it, trying to determine its origin and function. Her expression darkened. It disappeared from the lab 3 days ago. Batman's instincts crystallized into certainty. That's what Tetch is after. Combining Victorian pseudoscience with his own technology to create a new form of mind control. He turned toward the door. Where is the chamber located? Exactly. Dr. Caldwell pointed to the building plans. Access would be through the old service tunnels, here, but they were sealed decades ago for structural safety. I need to see everything you have on the Order and their rituals, Batman said. And you need to delay the exhibition opening. She shook her head regretfully. Impossible at this stage. Too many arrangements, too many powerful donors involved. But I can give you copies of everything I've found. She began gathering documents from her desk. I've been researching the Order for years, since long before this madman took an interest. As Dr. Caldwell assembled her research, Batman contacted Alfred. I need you to examine the museum's structural plans. Look for any connection between the original Gotham estate and the current building's sublevel. Already accessing the city's architectural archives, sir, Alfred replied promptly. I must say, this particular case strikes a rather personal chord. I recall reading Alice's Adventures in Wonderland to you as a child. You were quite taken with it, before your literary tastes turned to more practical subjects. The memory surfaced unexpectedly, Alfred's precise, proper voice bringing Carol's whimsical characters to life in the warm security of the Wayne Manor Library. A rare, bright moment in a childhood marked by loss. Now Tetch was perverting even that small comfort. The Order of the Looking Glass kept detailed records of their experiments, Dr. Caldwell said, interrupting his thoughts as she handed him a flash drive, including the compounds they used to induce altered states of consciousness. If Tetch has recreated their formula and combined it with his neural technology, it could control multiple minds simultaneously, Batman finished. A quantum leap beyond his usual capabilities, which might explain why he targeted individuals with security expertise, she agreed. He's preparing for an audience. Batman tucked the drive securely into his utility belt. I want you somewhere safe until this is resolved. Respect, she countered firmly. I'm the foremost expert on what he's trying to recreate. You need me. She held up the antique Alice volume. And there are details in these margins that aren't in my digital files. Drawings that might reveal exactly what the Order believed they discovered. Batman considered briefly, then nodded. Stay with the GCPD. I'll contact Commissioner Gordon to arrange protection. And leave my research here, unguarded. She shook her head. I'll bring what's necessary, but I need access to the museum's archives to continue piecing this together. You'll have access, Batman assured her, but not physically present. Oracle will connect you remotely to whatever resources you need. Dr. Caldwell looked ready to argue further, but a sudden sound from the hallway silenced her. The faint mechanical whirring of clockwork. Batman moved instantly, positioning himself between the door and the historian as the noise grew louder. Time's up, the hour grows late. The Hatter can no longer wait. The sing-song voice echoed eerily through the corridor, accompanied by the rhythmic ticking. The Queen demands her roses red, her garden painted with crimson dread. Batman motioned for Dr. Caldwell to stay back as he approached the door cautiously. The whirring sound continued, growing louder, but remained out of sight. A trap, certainly, but what kind? Sir, Alfred's voice came urgently through the cowl. "I've found something in the architectural records. The chamber beneath the rotunda. It appears to have been designed with unusual acoustic properties. When sound reaches certain frequencies within that space, it creates standing wave patterns that could theoretically affect neural activity." "Sound-based mind control," Batman murmured, "combined with Tetch's neural technology." The whirring outside suddenly accelerated, and the ticking transformed into a rapid, insistent pattern. Batman immediately recognized danger. "Down!" he commanded, pulling Dr. Caldwell away from the door just as a small mechanical rabbit hopped into view in the hallway. Its clockwork gears whirred frantically as its eyes began to glow with an unnatural blue light. The explosion was contained but powerful, blasting the office door inward and filling the room with dense, colorful smoke that carried a sickly sweet scent. Batman's cowl automatically filtered his breathing, but Dr. Caldwell wasn't so protected. She stumbled, coughing, as the psychoactive compound invaded her system. "Alfred, analysis," Batman demanded, supporting the historian as her eyes began to dilate rapidly. "Compound contains traces of Victorian-era consciousness-altering substances," Alfred reported after a moment, "combined with a modified version of Tetch's neural interface chemical. Fascinating hybrid of 19th century and modern psychopharmacology." Dr. Caldwell clutched Batman's arm, her grip surprisingly strong as her mind battled the chemical invasion. "The book," she gasped. "Take it, page 73, the doorway." Batman secured the antique volume inside his cape as he assessed their situation. The smoke was clearing, but Dr. Caldwell's exposure had been significant. Her pupils were fully dilated now, her breathing rapid. Yet, she was fighting the effects with remarkable determination. "Can't let him find the chamber," she managed, her words becoming slurred. "He doesn't understand. The Order didn't open a doorway to another world. They opened a door into the mind itself. Dangerous. Save your strength," Batman told her, guiding her toward the window where fresh air might help clear her system. "Oracle, alert Gordon. We need medical assistance at the museum and full chemical containment protocols." "On it," Oracle confirmed. "Batman, I'm detecting unusual radio frequencies emanating from the museum basement, similar to patterns Tetch has used for neural interface broadcasting, but much more complex." He's already begun, Batman realized. The explosion was a diversion. "Or a test of his delivery system," Alfred suggested. "Classical conditioning, associating the rabbit with the chemical compound. Rather on the nose, even for Mr. Tetch." Dr. Caldwell's body suddenly went rigid, her eyes fixed on something only she could see. "The door," she whispered. "It's opening. I can see everything." Her expression transformed from fear to wonder. So beautiful. The patterns, connecting everything. Batman recognized the dangerous fascination in her voice, the same expression he'd seen on victims of Scarecrow's fear toxin, but inverted. Not terror, but ecstatic revelation, perhaps more dangerous for its seductive quality. "Stay with me, Dr. Caldwell," he said firmly. "Focus on my voice." But she was beyond hearing, her mind now traveling pathways carved by Tetch's chemical cocktail. Batman carefully administered a mild sedative from his utility belt, enough to keep her stable until medical help arrived, without risking interaction with the unknown compounds already in her system. As her breathing steadied into unconsciousness, Batman opened the antique Alice volume to page 73. There, in faded ink, was a child's drawing of the Mad Hatter standing before an ornate mirror. But unlike Carol's character, this hatter wore an elaborate device on his head, a crown of metal and wire that bore an unsettling resemblance to Tetch's neural interface technology. Beside the drawing were handwritten notes, in a child's careful script. Grandfather says the looking glass can show your true self, but Mr. Dodgson says it shows a world where everything is backwards. I think they're both right. Batman studied the illustration more carefully. Behind the Hatter figure was a detailed sketch of a circular chamber with strange patterns carved into its walls, patterns that matched descriptions of neural pathways in Victorian medical texts. The chamber wasn't designed to open a portal to another world. It was engineered to open pathways in the human mind itself. Alfred, I need everything on William Gotham's family history, Batman instructed, particularly any connection to Lewis Carroll, Charles Dodgson, during his visit to America. Curious connection, sir, Alfred replied. According to my initial research, Dodgson did indeed visit the Gotham estate during his American tour in 1867. He was fascinated by William Gotham's collection of optical devices and early psychological research. Batman carefully photographed the pages with his Cowles camera before securing the book. The Order wasn't just dabbling in the occult, they were pioneering neurological research, using the language of mysticism to describe what they didn't yet understand scientifically. And Tetch has rediscovered their work, Alfred concluded grimly, combining Victorian insights with modern technology, a most disturbing synergy. Distant sirens announced the approach of GCPD units. Batman prepared to depart, but not before ensuring Dr. Caldwell was positioned safely for medical attention. Despite her sedation, her lips continued moving silently, eyes darting beneath closed lids, as though watching scenes unfold in her mind. Oracle, maintain monitoring of those broadcasts, Batman instructed as he grappled from the window into the night. I need to access that chamber before Tetch completes whatever he's planning. The signal's increasing in complexity, she reported, and I'm detecting multiple new frequencies emerging, as if he's fine-tuning the broadcast for different neural patterns. Batman swung around the museum's gothic exterior, seeking the access point to the old service tunnels Dr. Caldwell had identified. The museum's security systems were already compromised, evidence of Tetch's victims' expertise being put to use. Each security camera he passed had been subtly modified, now serving as both surveillance and potential broadcast points for Tetch's signal. Sir, I've completed my analysis of the chamber's design. Alfred's voice came through the cowl as Batman descended into the darkness beneath the museum. Most ingenious, if disturbing, the acoustic properties create standing wave patterns that correspond to specific brainwave frequencies. Combined with the compounds the Order was experimenting with, it could potentially synchronize neural activity across multiple individuals, creating a shared hallucinatory state, Batman concluded, navigating through the narrow maintenance tunnels. The air grew colder as he descended, carrying the musty scent of spaces undisturbed for decades. Tetch isn't just controlling minds, he's merging them into a collective experience, his own private wonderland, Alfred said softly, with himself as the creator rather than merely a character. The tunnel opened into a larger space, a forgotten storage area that predated the museum's construction. Dust-covered abandoned crates and display cases preserved in the cool, dry air like archaeological artifacts. Batman moved silently through this underground archive, his cowl's enhanced vision revealing details in the darkness. On the far wall, barely visible beneath decades of dust, was a faded mural depicting figures gathered around an ornate mirror. The painting style matched the Victorian era, but the subject matter was unmistakably influenced by Carroll's work. The figures wore exaggerated hats and carried pocket watches, their faces somewhere between human and animal. "I've found something," Batman reported, examining the mural more closely. The Order left their own record of their work. He traced the pattern bordering the painted mirror, mathematical sequences disguised as decorative elements. They weren't just experimenting blindly, they were following a specific theoretical framework. "Sir, regarding William Gotham's daughter," Alfred interjected. Her name was Alice. The connection clicked into place. Carroll wasn't just visiting the Gotham estate as a literary celebrity. He was consulting with the Order about their experiments, using his own Alice story as a metaphorical framework for understanding consciousness. "Indeed," Alfred confirmed. "According to these records, young Alice Gotham suffered from what they termed episodes of dissociative awareness, what we might now recognize as a form of epilepsy affecting the temporal lobe. The Order believed her condition allowed her to perceive aspects of reality others couldn't access." Batman examined the base of the mural, noting how the paint extended slightly onto the floor, creating an unbroken circuit around a central point. They weren't trying to open a doorway to another world. They were trying to open doorways between minds, using Alice's unique neural pathways as a template. As he spoke, Batman detected a faint vibration through the stone floor, rhythmic pulses that seemed to resonate within his own skull. Tetch's broadcast was strengthening, penetrating even to these depths. "Oracle, status on the signal," he subvocalized. "Expanding throughout the museum complex," she replied, concern evident in her voice. "I'm picking up unusual neural activity from security personnel and evening staff still in the building. They're not incapacitated, but their brainwave patterns are synchronizing to Tetch's broadcast frequency." He's bringing them into alignment, Batman realized, preparing their minds to enter his constructed reality, like the Order tried to do with their ritual. He continued through the storage area, following the subtle vibrations to their source. The passage narrowed again, descending deeper beneath the museum. Ahead, a faint blue light pulsed in rhythm with the vibrations, the same unnatural blue he'd seen in the mechanical rabbit's eyes. "I believe I've located a significant connection, sir," Alfred reported. "The Order's final gathering wasn't disbanded by authorities as the official record states. According to William Gotham's private journals, the ritual was interrupted because it began working too well. Participants reported their minds merging, sharing thoughts and perceptions. But rather than the transcendent experience they anticipated, it triggered panic and psychosis." "Mass hysteria," Batman said, approaching the source of the blue light. "More than that," Alfred corrected. "Gotham describes it as the dissolution of self. Individual minds losing their boundaries, unable to distinguish personal thoughts from the collective consciousness they'd created. Several participants never recovered, remaining in a catatonic state until death." The passage opened into a perfectly circular chamber, its walls covered in intricate carvings that Batman now recognized as mathematical equations and early neural mapping attempts. In the center stood a metal frame resembling a full-length mirror, but where glass should have been was only empty space. A doorway leading nowhere. Or perhaps, as the Order had believed, everywhere. The frame pulsed with the same blue light, powered by a complex arrangement of modern technology interfaced with Victorian-era mechanisms. Tetch had merged 19th century design with 21st century electronics, creating something neither era could have produced alone. And before this unholy hybrid stood the Mad Hatter himself, Jervis Tetch. He wore an elaborate top hat modified with neural interface components. wires connecting to the frame and to smaller devices arranged around the chamber. He worked with manic precision, adjusting settings while muttering carol quotes under his breath. Late, so late, but not too late, he sang to himself, unaware of Batman's presence in the shadows. The door stands open, minds await, the Hatter's party soon begins, when all of Gotham joins my grin. Batman assessed the situation rapidly. The chamber's design concentrated Tetch's broadcast signal, amplifying it through the museum's structure. From here he could potentially reach hundreds of minds simultaneously, an unprecedented scale for his usual neural manipulation. Oracle, I need a signal disruption, Batman sub-vocalized. Target frequency matching Tetch's broadcast. Working on it, she replied. But his signal is adaptive. Every time I block one frequency, it shifts to another. He's built remarkable redundancy into the system. Batman reached for an EMP device in his utility belt. A risky solution given the unknown components in Tetch's hybrid creation, but potentially necessary. Before he could deploy it, however, Tetch suddenly straightened, turning toward Batman's position with an unnervingly precise awareness. The Bat arrives, right on time, Tetch grinned broadly, his eyes wild with manic energy. I knew you'd find my breadcrumb trail, my painting game, my Wonderland tale. Batman stepped from the shadows, assessing potential approaches. The chamber offered limited mobility, its circular design channeling movement around the central frame. It's over, Tetch. Your broadcast won't reach beyond these walls. Oh, but it already has, Tetch giggled, gesturing theatrically. The dormouse sleeps, the rabbit runs, the queen demands her painted roses. All across Gotham minds are opening, joining my tea party. Even now they dream my dreams, see my visions. Such a lovely chorus of consciousness. You're not creating harmony, Batman countered, edging closer while studying the apparatus for vulnerabilities. You're destroying individual minds. The Order's final experiment failed catastrophically. Their participants lost all sense of self. Tetch's expression darkened momentarily before his manic smile returned. They lacked my expertise, my beautiful hats, my understanding of neural architecture. He tapped his modified top hat proudly. I am not merely opening doors between minds, I am becoming the doorway itself, the master of the looking glass. As if to demonstrate, he twisted a dial on his control panel. The blue light pulsed more intensely and Batman felt a momentary disorientation, images flickering at the edges of his vision. His cowl's defense systems activated automatically, disrupting the incoming signal, but not before he glimpsed fragments of impossible scenes. Oversized playing cards marching in formation, massive teacups spinning like carnival rides, roses bleeding actual blood as they transformed from white to red. You see, Tetch crowed delightedly, even your protected mind catches glimpses. Imagine those without your technological shields. They're already dancing through my wonderland. Batman steadied himself, focusing on concrete reality. The human mind isn't designed for merged consciousness, Tetch. You're fracturing your victims' psyches. No, Tetch stamped his foot petulantly. I'm freeing them from the prison of individual perception. Alice understood. The little girl whose grandfather built this chamber. She saw beyond the veil. Carol knew it too. Why do you think he wrote his masterpiece? It wasn't mere fantasy. It was a map to expanded consciousness. Batman continued his careful approach, noting how the apparatus connected to the chamber's acoustic architecture. Alice Gotham was suffering from a neurological condition. Carol's story was an attempt to make sense of her experiences, not a literal description of another realm. Tet's face contorted with rage. Lies! She saw the truth. As I do, as all of Gotham soon will. He twisted another dial sharply. Perhaps you need a stronger dose, Batman. A proper tumble down the rabbit hole. The blue light surged, and the chamber's walls seemed to ripple like disturbed water. Batman felt pressure building in his skull as Tetch's broadcast intensified, targeted specifically at him now. His cowl's protective system struggled against the onslaught of sensory manipulation. "Sir, your neural readings are becoming erratic." Alfred's concerned voice cut through the disorientation. "The signal appears to be adapting to your protective measures." Batman reached for the EMP device, but his movements felt sluggish, as though the air had thickened around him. Tetch's broadcast was affecting his motor cortex now, interfering with the connection between thought and action. Poor Bat, caught in my trap," Tetch sing-songed, his voice seeming to echo from multiple directions simultaneously. "Your wings are clipped, your will shall bend. The Hatter's story has no end." With supreme effort, Batman fought through the neural interference, focusing on Alfred's voice as an anchor to reality. "Alfred," he managed, "the book, page 73, the device on the Hatter's head. What does it look like?" Alfred responded immediately, understanding Batman's strategy. Young Alice's drawing shows a crown-like apparatus with 7 distinct connection points: temporal, parietal, occipital, and frontal. The central node appears to function as a regulator. Batman's vision swam with contradictory images, the actual chamber overlaid with Tetch's projected wonderland, but he forced himself to focus on the real Tetch, identifying the components Alfred described on the madman's modified hat. The Order believed their experiment failed because they couldn't maintain balance between minds, Batman said, deliberately engaging Tetch's obsession to distract him. The collective consciousness became chaotic, overwhelming the participants. Tetch paused in his adjustments, genuinely interested despite himself. Yes, their calibration was crude, imprecise. They lacked proper understanding of neural oscillation pattern. But you've solved that problem, Batman continued, moving closer while Tetch was distracted. Your hat regulates the connection, maintains your dominance over the shared consciousness. Precisely, Tetch beamed, pleased at being understood. I am the Hatter, the center of the dream. All roads in Wonderland lead to my tea table. He tapped his modified hat proudly. The Order tried to create equality among minds. Foolish. Dreams need a dreamer. Wonderland needs its Hatter. While Tetch expounded on his genius, Batman managed to activate his cowl's sonic analyzer, mapping the chamber's acoustic properties. As Alfred had discovered, the circular room was designed to create specific standing wave patterns, but those same patterns could be disrupted with precisely calibrated counter-frequencies. Oracle, Batman sub-vocalized through gritted teeth. Sending acoustic mapping data. Need counter-frequency broadcast through my cowl's external speakers. Receiving, she confirmed. Calculating optimal disruption pattern. But Batman, this could affect your own neural function as well. The frequencies will impact everyone in that chamber. Do it, he ordered, bracing himself. Tetch was fully engrossed in his manic monologue now, describing his vision of a Gotham united in collective hallucination. All minds joined in perfect madness. No more loneliness, no more boundaries, just tea and riddles, and wonderful, wonderful chaos. Now, Oracle, Batman commanded. His cowl's external speakers emitted a precisely modulated sound, not particularly loud, but hitting exact frequencies that interacted with the chamber's acoustic design. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The standing wave patterns that amplified Tetch's broadcast collapsed, creating sonic interference that rippled through the apparatus. Tetch screamed, clutching his head as his neural interface feedback surged. The blue light flickered erratically, projected images dissolving into chaotic patterns. No, my beautiful pattern, my perfect dream. Batman pushed through his own disorientation, focusing on the central control panel. With precise movements, he disabled the primary transmission modules, shutting down the broadcast one system at a time. My wonderland, Tetch wailed, staggering toward Batman with surprising speed despite his disorientation. You're ruining everything. Off with your head. Off with your head. He lunged wildly, a concealed blade extending from his sleeve. Batman deflected the attack smoothly, despite the lingering effects of the neural interference, redirecting Tetch's momentum to send him sprawling onto the chamber floor. It's finished, Tetch, Batman said, completing the shutdown sequence. The blue light faded as systems powered down, leaving only the emergency lighting casting harsh shadows through the ancient chamber. Tetch curled into a fetal position, hugging himself as his constructed reality disintegrated. Gone, all gone, he whimpered. The tea party ends, the guests depart. Alice leaves the Hatter alone again. Batman secured Tetch with restraints, then methodically disabled the remaining components of his apparatus. The Victorian artifacts were preserved for evidence, their ghastly marriage to modern technology now severed. Oracle, status unaffected personnel, he asked as he worked. Returning to normal neural patterns, she reported with audible relief. The effect appears to have been temporary once the broadcast ended. Medical teams are reporting confusion and disorientation among museum staff, but no permanent damage detected so far. And Dr. Caldwell? Stable. The exposure to Tetch's compound was significant, but the medical team administered the broad-spectrum antidote from your supplies. She's experiencing some lingering disorientation, but is already helping them understand what happened. Batman surveyed the ancient chamber one final time. The Order of the Looking Glass had stumbled upon neurological principles they couldn't possibly have understood, clothing their discoveries in mystical language and ritual. Over a century later, Tetch had nearly weaponized that knowledge on a scale previously unimaginable. I'm bringing Tetch up, Batman informed Gordon via Oracle's connection. Have Arkham prepare a specialized containment protocol. His neural technology is advancing beyond previous capabilities. As he guided the now compliant Tetch through the tunnels toward the surface, Batman reflected on the case's disturbing implications. The Mad Hatter had always been dangerous, but his obsessions had previously limited his focus to small groups of victims. This attempt to create a city-wide shared hallucination represented an evolution in his madness, more ambitious, more methodical. Curiouser and curiouser, Tetch muttered as they emerged into the museum's main level, his voice temporarily free of its usual manic quality. Did you see it, Batman? Before you broke the mirror? The patterns connecting everyone? So beautiful. Batman remained silent, but the question lingered. In the moment before Oracle's counter-frequency disrupted the chamber's acoustics, he had glimpsed something. Not Tetch's Wonderland hallucination, but a deeper pattern underlying consciousness itself. The briefest suggestion that the Order's theories about interconnected minds might contain a kernel of truth, however distorted by Victorian mysticism and Tetch's madness. GCPD officers waited at the museum entrance, Gordon personally supervising Tetch's transfer to a secure medical transport. The commissioner looked tired but relieved as Batman approached. We've got reports of mass hallucinations across a 10-block radius, Gordon said quietly. People seeing playing cards marching down the street, giant teacups, talking animals. the whole Carol catalogue. Fading now, but it was touch and go for a while. The effect was temporary, Batman confirmed. Once Tetch's broadcast ended, the hallucinations should dissipate completely. Gordon watched as medical personnel secured Tetch for transport, the madman now humming Carol's verses softly to himself. He's getting more sophisticated. This wasn't just his usual mind control. People weren't just following orders. They were sharing his delusions, experiencing them as reality. He merged Victorian theoretical frameworks with modern neurotechnology, Batman explained. The museum had been studying artifacts from an old Gotham secret society, the Order of the Looking Glass. Tetch adapted their research. Great, Gordon sighed. As if 19th century Gotham didn't have enough gothic horror without adding mind-melding cults to the mix. He rubbed his eyes tiredly. Dr. Caldwell's been asking for you. She's still a bit disoriented, but insistent about discussing something she experienced while under Tetch's influence. Batman found the art historian sitting in the back of an ambulance, a thermal blanket wrapped around her shoulders despite the mild night air. Her eyes were clearer now, her hands steady as she held a steaming cup of tea that seemed darkly appropriate given the case's theme. You stopped him, she said as Batman approached. Not a question, but a statement of fact. Yes, the chamber has been secured along with the artifacts Tetch modified. She nodded, staring into her tea as though reading patterns in its surface. I saw it, you know. What the Order was trying to achieve. What Alice Gotham experienced. She looked up, meeting Batman's gaze directly. It wasn't madness, not exactly. They had discovered something real about consciousness. How minds might connect beyond ordinary perception. Tetch corrupted that discovery, Batman said. Yes and no, she replied thoughtfully. He understood the mechanics better than they did, the neural pathways, the frequencies required, but he couldn't grasp the profound implication. The Order believed they'd found evidence that consciousness isn't confined to individual minds, that under certain conditions, the boundaries between selves might dissolve. A dangerous concept in the wrong hands, Batman observed. In anyone's hands, she corrected. The human psyche isn't structured to maintain coherence without the boundary of self. That's why their experiment failed so catastrophically. The participants couldn't reintegrate their individual identities after experiencing merged consciousness. She sipped her tea carefully. The mind needs limits to function. Even Alice Gotham, who the Order believed had natural aptitude for moving between states of consciousness, suffered greatly from her gift. Batman thought of the small, careful drawings in the margins of the antique Alice volume. A child trying to map experiences beyond ordinary perception, using Carol's fantastical framework to make sense of neurological anomalies. The book will need to be secured, he said, along with the chamber and artifacts. Already arranged, Caldwell assured him. Wayne Enterprises' Historical Preservation Division contacted the museum director just before you arrived. They're providing a specialized secure facility for studying and protecting the Order's legacy. She smiled slightly. Quite generous funding, too. Mr. Wayne seems to have a particular interest in historical artifacts with unusual properties. Batman merely nodded, unsurprised that Alfred had already initiated the proper protocols through Wayne Enterprises' channels. The Order's discoveries were too significant and potentially dangerous to leave unsecured or allow to disappear into private collections. There's one more thing, Dr. Caldwell added, her expression becoming troubled. While under the influence of Tetch's compound, I experienced his version of Wonderland, but beneath his gaudy theatrical imagery I sensed something else. patterns of consciousness extending throughout Gotham, connecting minds in ways we never perceive ordinarily, like a vast web underlying reality itself. She looked at Batman intently. Did you see it too? Beyond the hallucinations? Batman was silent for a moment, considering his response. What matters is that Tetch's manipulation has ended. Whatever you experienced was the result of chemical and neurological interference. She studied him with the practiced eye of a historian accustomed to reading between lines. Of course, she said finally, not believing him but accepting his reticence. Just chemical interference. Still, it makes one wonder what else we might discover about consciousness if we looked beyond conventional frameworks. Some discoveries require careful handling, Batman replied. The Order learned that lesson too late. Dr. Caldwell nodded, wrapping the blanket tighter around her shoulders as a chill breeze swept through the museum plaza. Carol wrote that Wonderland's logic was dream logic, consistent within its own framework but incompatible with waking reality. Perhaps certain aspects of consciousness are similar, coherent in their own context, but dangerous when forced into ordinary perception. Batman left her to her contemplation as medical personnel approached for further evaluation. The night's work wasn't finished. The chamber needed thorough documentation before Wayne Enterprises' specialist could properly secure it, and Tetch's victims required monitoring for lingering effects. He grappled to a nearby rooftop, watching as the emergency response continued below. The museum's Gothic architecture stood silent and dignified in the moonlight, its walls once again containing, rather than broadcasting, Tetch's madness. Alfred, he subvocalized, has the Wayne Enterprises team been briefed on handling the artifacts? Indeed, sir, Alfred replied promptly. I've assembled our most discreet specialists in historical preservation and neurological research. The Order's artifacts will be thoroughly studied under the strictest security protocols. Batman gazed across Gotham's skyline, the city gradually returning to its normal rhythms as Tetch's broadcast faded from affected minds. What the Order discovered, what Tetch exploited, it has implications beyond this case. Regarding the nature of consciousness itself, Alfred agreed soberly. The intersection of 19th century mysticism and modern neuroscience proves surprisingly compatible in certain theoretical frameworks. Rather disturbing implications for our understanding of individual identity. The human mind isn't designed to function without boundaries, Batman said, echoing Dr. Caldwell's assessment. Merged consciousness leads to psychosis and dissolution of self. In most cases, certainly, Alfred concurred. Although I'm reminded of certain Eastern philosophical traditions that have explored comparable concepts through meditation rather than technology, the difference being voluntary exploration rather than forced immersion. Batman watched as Tetch's medical transport departed, police escorts surrounding it. Ensure all data from the chamber is secured. Nothing leaves Wayne Enterprises facilities. Of course, sir. May I ask, did you experience any of the effects yourself, despite your protective systems? Batman was silent for a moment, remembering that brief glimpse beneath Tetch's theatrical Wonderland imagery. The suggestion of consciousness as an interconnected web extending throughout Gotham. Every mind a node in a vast network, normally hidden from perception. Nothing significant, he finally replied. Momentary sensory anomalies, nothing more. Very good, sir, Alfred said, though his tone suggested he detected Batman's evasion. I've prepared a full decontamination protocol for your return. Those Victorian compounds can have lingering neurological effects, even at minimal exposure levels. As Batman prepared to depart, Oracle's voice came through his cowl. All affected civilians are returning to normal consciousness. No fatalities reported. Gordon set up a cover story about a gas leak causing mass hallucinations. Standard Gotham explanation, Batman noted with grim satisfaction. The city had long practiced in rationalizing the irrational, finding comforting explanations for horrors beyond ordinary understanding. Tetch left something for you, she added, a note they found in his pocket during processing, addressed specifically to Batman. Just a quote from Carol. Who in the world am I? Ah, that's the great puzzle. Oracle paused briefly. Philosophical for Tetch. Usually he's more theatrical. The quote resonated uncomfortably with what Batman had glimpsed in that moment of neural interference. The suggestion that individual identity might be more permeable, more constructed than humans preferred to believe. That the boundary between self and other might be neither as fixed nor as impenetrable as modern consciousness assumed. Update me when Tetch reaches Arkham, he instructed, pushing the unsettling thoughts aside. And have Wayne Medical forward any anomalous neural readings from victims to the Batcave for analysis. Will do. Heading home? Batman looked out over the city one last time, its familiar skyline reassuringly solid and real after the disorienting experiences in the chamber. Not yet. I want to check on the other affected areas first, make sure Tetch's influence is truly gone. The eastern sky was just beginning to lighten as Batman completed his patrol of the affected neighborhoods. True to Oracle's reports, the mass hallucinations had faded completely, leaving confused but recovering citizens who readily accepted the gas leak explanation. By morning, the incident would join Gotham's extensive catalogue of strange events, remembered but normalized, incorporated into the city's collective understanding of itself as a place where reality occasionally bent but never quite broke. Batman returned to the Batcave as dawn fully emerged, the Batmobile's engine echoing through the vast underground space. Alfred waited with his customary composure, medical equipment prepared for the promised decontamination protocol. A successful conclusion, I trust? The butler inquired, as Batman emerged from the vehicle. Tetch is secured at Arkham. The Order's artifacts are being transported to Wayne Enterprises facilities. Batman removed his cowl, revealing the fatigue Bruce Wayne rarely allowed himself to display. But something about this case feels unfinished, Alfred. The philosophical implications rather than the practical threat. Alfred nodded, understanding as always. Some adversaries challenge not just the body or the city, but our fundamental understanding of reality itself. Bruce submitted to Alfred's medical examination, his mind still processing the boundaries between Tetch's artificial wonderland and the genuine neurological discoveries the madman had exploited. The Order was researching consciousness itself, not just controlling it, but understanding its fundamental nature. Indeed, sir. The Victorian era produced numerous quasi-scientific explorations of consciousness, from spiritualism to early psychological theory. The Order appears to have been unusually sophisticated in their approach, despite clothing their discoveries in mystical language. Alfred checked Bruce's pupillary response, noting with satisfaction that no lingering effects from Tetch's broadcast remained. They discovered something real, Bruce said quietly, something Tetch understood enough to weaponize if not fully comprehend. Alfred paused in his examination, studying his charge's expression with the attentiveness of decades of service. You glimpsed it yourself, didn't you, despite your protective systems? Bruce met the butler's gaze directly. Just fragments. Beneath Tetch's Wonderland imagery, his childish tea parties and playing cards, there was something else, a pattern connecting consciousness throughout Gotham, as if individual minds, are nodes in a larger network we're normally incapable of perceiving. Rather like quantum entanglement at the neurological level, Alfred mused, quite beyond our current scientific framework, yet not inherently mystical. Bruce moved to the back computer, bringing up scans of the chamber's architecture and Tetch's modified neural interface. The Order was trying to make that network perceivable, to allow minds to experience their fundamental interconnection. But human consciousness evolved specifically to function within boundaries. Without the sense of separate self, the mind loses coherence. Hummel imagines the experience might be rather like suddenly perceiving all radio frequencies simultaneously, Alfred suggested, overwhelming to a system designed to filter and process information selectively. Bruce studied the equation-like patterns carved into the chamber walls, 19th century attempts to mathematically describe neural networks using the limited vocabulary of Victorian science. Tetch's breakthrough was controlling the experience, using his neural interface to guide and direct perception through the network, rather than allowing unrestricted access, creating a shared hallucination rather than true merged consciousness. Alfred nodded, more theatrically satisfying for his purposes, and less likely to induce complete psychosis in his victims. Bruce leaned back in his chair, feeling the night's exertions in every muscle. Have Wayne Neurological assign a research team to study the Order's theoretical framework, quietly, with full security protocols. What they discovered has implications beyond Tetch's madness. Very good, sir. And the chamber itself? Sealed permanently. Some doorways should remain closed, no matter their scientific value. Alfred nodded approvingly, then gestured toward the manor above. I've prepared a light breakfast, should you wish it before resting. And perhaps some tea? His mouth quirked in the ghost of a smile, though perhaps not served in oversized cups. Bruce allowed himself a small, answering smile as they ascended toward the manor. The Hatter was contained, his wonderland dispelled. Gotham would wake to ordinary reality, unaware of how close it had come to experiencing a mass dissolution of individual consciousness. Yet as Bruce Wayne prepared to rest after Batman's night of protecting the city's collective sanity, he couldn't entirely dismiss the memory of that glimpsed pattern, the brief suggestion that ordinary perception might be a necessary illusion, a protective boundary between individual mind and universal consciousness. Later, as sleep finally claimed him, Bruce's dreams were mercifully ordinary, free of rabbit holes, mad tea parties, and impossible doorways between minds. The boundaries of self remained intact, preserving the coherence of identity that made Batman possible. Yet somewhere beneath conscious thought, the question Tetch had left echoed with new significance. Who in the world am I? Ah, that's the great puzzle. In Gotham, as in Wonderland, some puzzles were best left unsolved, not because they lacked answers, but because the answers themselves might dissolve the very minds that sought them. And so our tale of Gotham comes to an end. Let the gentle night embrace you as you drift toward peaceful dreams, knowing that somewhere in the darkness, the Dark Knight watches over his city. If you're not asleep yet, we will now play the ambience of Gotham City at night to help you fall asleep. And if you were just listening to our tales, we will see you next time. Good night and sleep well.